Hi, welcome to today's learning session. My name is Kristin Gutierrez, and I'm joined by Miguel Sepulveda at King, talking about nurturing a localization team to thrive. Hi, Miguel.
Hey, Kristin, how are you?
I'm great. I'm so pleased we were able to collaborate on this. So thank you so much for all of your time.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to our conversation.
Excellent. Let me quickly introduce Miguel so you know how awesome he is. He started his career in the localization industry in 1995 and says he loves the intersection between technology, culture, and languages. He owns the blog YoLocalizo.com, where he blogs every week about topics related to localization, culture, and cultural intelligence and leadership. But not only that, then he has a background in computer engineering. He spent time at Microsoft in Dublin. He has a Scrum Master's certification and a PMP certificate. But the last 12 years, he's been involved in globalization in the gaming industry, where he worked first at EA and now at King, where he supports the globally recognized franchises like Candy Crush, Farm Heroes, Pet Rescue, Bubble Witch, among others. Mm-hmm. Candy Crush is certainly addicting.
Yeah, it is.
So I'll toss it over to you now, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. Very nice introduction. Thank you so much. Today, what I want to talk is about nurturing a localization team. So it's all around some thoughts, some techniques, some approaches that I took during my career. And I think that sharing this, maybe it might be useful for some of the people listening to us. So let's see what we can get out of this. And I would like to start making the point that it's a people business. And it's all about people. And I want to reinforce this message during today, because in my opinion, this is an area that we tend to overlook when we talk about localization. We can spend long hours or even days talking about best localization practices, how to create the perfect localization kit for our vendors. We can have also passionate discussions about cost models, ROI of internal localization teams versus outsourcing. It's great to have those conversations, don't get me wrong. But usually, we forget to pay attention to people. And to be honest, this is something that I don't understand why this happens. As usually, most of the projects fail because of the people and the communication with team members and different stakeholders. It's true that there are better tools than others, no doubt about it. Tools are important as they can make us more productive and reliable. However, different research studies reported that poor communication is number one reason that project fails. And in my opinion, people might be the most difficult component to integrate in the localization process, because we are complex creatures with complex reactions and random, and we can behave totally different in our relationship with other team members, depending on many, many external factors. Therefore, with these precedents, I think it's very important to focus on how to create and nurture a localization team to put them in the best possible conditions to sign. Now, the question is, how do we do this? And the reality is that leading teams nowadays is complex. There are new generations arriving in the workforce. We have people working from every corner around the globe. And this new reality requires a new mindset, a new framework, a new management style. And here is where the Management 3.0 is going to help us. And what is this? What's this Management 3.0? Or actually, does it exist Management 1.0 or Management 2.0? And Yes, there is also Management 1.0 and Management 2.0. I guess it's not officially known as 1 or 2. But Management 1.0 is about looking at people as if they are machines, as if they are cogs in a machine, and the machine is in a factory. And this style of management was invented with the rise of Industrial Revolution, and unfortunately, it's still applied by many companies. In my opinion, there was a time and a place where it seems a good idea, but it's totally not a fit for modern professionals. And then we have the next step, the Management 2.0, that things are getting better in this model, but still room for improvement. Management 2.0 is about understanding that people are the most valuable assets in our organization. However, hierarchy is still present in this model. And a strong hierarchy is heavily being relied on managers, and managers still managing individual team members instead of these professionals managing themselves. And then we have this model, which I find fascinating, and I've been working for a few years now, which is a new way of living, and definitely more aligned with today's need. And it leads organization in a very powerful way. And it's not really a framework, it's a mindset combined with an ever-changing collection of games, tools, and best practices to help any worker manage the organization. And the good thing with this is that usually there are a lot of management models and theories out there, and many books and podcasts and YouTube videos, everything. And they all sound great in theory. The problem is that we don't always know how to implement in practical terms what we read in books. For example, what can I do concretely tomorrow or next Tuesday afternoon to work better with my colleagues? And people need, what I realize is that people need actionable advice, things that they can start doing now, next week, next month. And that's where Management 3.0 comes in. And it does it with a set of principles and rules. Rules such as delegation poker, probably this is my favorite one in the Agile Manifesto of Management 3.0, because this simple game, it's given and it gave me strong benefits in my career. And delegation poker, it's all about employee engagement, and employee engagement through a controlled self-organization. And this concept of self-organization, I think it's important to highlight. Truth is, people don't like being managed. For this reason, getting a conversation about how decisions will be made in the team, it's crucial. Because the reality, or what I have experienced during my career, is that many confusion and friction between teams is related with not having a clear process to describe how to make decisions. And delegation poker is one of the principles from Management 3.0 that it comes to our rescue to help us living and nurturing our localization team culture. And playing this game is easy but powerful. And to summarize it, work like this: we have a deck of cards with different numbers and actions. And then what we need to do is to draw a table in a whiteboard where we are going to decide how to approach certain topics affecting the team. For example, in our industry, in the localization industry, although this model can be applied for other industry, I have used it to decide in things like, as a team, who will decide project allocation, or how and who will decide when to take holidays, or who will decide about content management system to use for our content. It could be any area that they feel teams that it's unclear. So it's really helpful to clean the air. And then every member of the team needs to look the cards, think about the action we are evaluating, and grab a card to express the preferred way of dealing with that situation. And to go over quickly about these different possibilities, we have different actions. The first one is is tell. Tell means manager makes the decision and tell everyone what to do. The second one is sell, where manager still makes the decision, but the manager tries to get the team on side by selling the idea to them. And key here is to let them know what motivated the decision, to explain the decision and why that decision was taken. That it's a big difference in the sell and tell. You need to explain why. And then we have the number 3, which is consult. And we ask for input from members, from the people we manage. And the number 4 is around the idea of agree. And it's when we ask for input from different localizers of our team, and we work towards consensus. And number 5, advice, where manager gives employees advice, but leave the decision on what to do with the input to them. And then we have the level 6, which is inquire. And here we leave the decision up to the team and maybe ask to be kept informed. And sometimes what I have done here is to ask the team how they arrive at the decision. What did they consider to take that decision? But they have the whole accountability of the decision. And the final one is delegation, where a manager gives the team the total responsibility for a particular matter and leave everything up to them. For example, this is what I do with holidays. I don't need to be really involved. I trust that the team will take the holidays when they can, and they will find a plan to back up. So in this specific case, I am delegating the whole responsibility. So the idea with this delegation poker is that we're going to have a board with different scores, different areas we want to discuss, and then we review the results and we create a team charter to reflect the agreements. In a nutshell, Agile Management or Management 3.0, this technique that is one of the 7 recommendations that we have in the framework. It's all about team empowerment, which is related with nurturing this localization environment. And it's all around the idea of instead of team always waiting for input and instructions from managers, which it might be the traditional management styles, here the teams, the individuals, they are given a degree of autonomy. And this autonomy is based on their known abilities. And teams are aligned according to the constraints, and they need to be aligned with the system. And these concepts that managing the system, not the people, I really like this one. And it was like a wow moment for me when I discovered this. Because the concept of the system and managing the system, it's very important from a leadership perspective, because here we don't really, in the work we do in the localization industry, we don't really need to focus our attention managing people. We need to focus our attention managing the system. This is weird, because why do I have to manage the system instead of the people? And the reason is that they are the specialists. They know much more than I know in certain areas. So I cannot really help them to manage their work at a very detailed level. They are the specialists. But I can help them with the vision, and definitely I can help them if I manage the system in which they are working. So what's the system? What's in this environment? What do I refer as a system? And the system is everything, but it smells like corporative policies. For example, how to pay our localization vendors. That's the system. I need to manage that, and I need to provide some guidelines about how to hire our localization teams, guidance about how we are going to track the cost. Another example of systems is the travel policies. So these are the systems, and these are the systems, and these are the things that I need to help the team to manage. An analogy that I learned to help teams to understand this concept of managing the system is to think about this management style as coloring in a coloring book. And pictures in a coloring book, when I'm doing this with my kids, they have boundaries. And likewise, my role as a manager is to make sure there is a shared understanding between myself and my team members about where the boundaries are and when it's appropriate to push the limits. And once this is understood, I can work to help manage the constraints when coloring outside of the lines. I don't really care what colors or techniques are used to color the pictures because they are the specialists. That's the analogy. As long as team members stay within the lines, I'm happy with that. They are the ones closest to the work. So I trust that they will make the best decision within the context. But if a team member begins coloring outside the lines, outside the systems, it signifies that reflection and coaching it's necessary to either bring them back inside their lines or consider the possibility of expanding their boundaries. That's the meaning of managing the system, not the people. And it's been very useful for me because it allows me to focus on something else. And the last technique that I want to share with you, it's about what we can do to nurture a localization team, and which is another technique that has been quite useful for me, and it's around the concept of cross-cultural competency. And this slide here that we have here, it's an infographic created by the Institute of the Future, and they are trying to anticipate the skills needed to succeed in the coming years, well, actually next year. And many of the skills mentioned here are somehow soft skills related. And the one that I'd like to spend a couple of minutes explaining is this one of cross-cultural competency. This skill is also known as cultural intelligence. And I don't know how familiar people might be with this concept of cultural intelligence, or CQ, but it's the ability to work effectively in culturally diverse situations, which by definition is a skill very useful for all of us working in the localization industry. And research shows that people with a high level of CQ are more successful in multicultural environments. And localization teams from either the language service provider or buyer side, by nature, we tend to be very international. And the ability to engage with our different multicultural stakeholders is key in maximizing results. And maybe you might be familiar with the concept of EQ, or emotional intelligence. And this might sound similar, but actually it's not really like that, because EQ is the ability to identify and manage our own emotions and the emotions of others. It's all about understand persons at a human level. We build empathy. CQ is the ability to relate and communicate effectively with people from other countries. It's all about having the ability to cross boundaries so we can thrive in multiple cultures. And different cultures, we have different approaches when it comes to different areas. For example, communicating. We have some countries like USA, Netherlands, UK, that they are considered low context cultures. And good communication is precise, simple, explicit, clear. Messages are understood at face value, and repetition is appreciated for purposes of clarification. But then we have other countries, such as Japan, for example, that they are considered to be a high context culture. And there the communication is sophisticated. And messages are often implied, but not plainly stated, unless it's put in writing, and more is left open to interpretation. And understanding may depend on reading between the lines, reading the air, as they say in Japan. Then why CQ? It's important. Well, for example, if you're working with a Japanese colleague and a Dutch peer, you need to understand that you need to adapt to a different style to be effective. That's what CQ is all about. It's about being able to change my style to adapt the communication style of the others in areas such as persuasion, leading, giving feedback, trust. And the good thing about cultural intelligence is that it's a skill that we can all learn. And a good step would be to visit the website of the Cultural Intelligence Center and run a self-assessment to get a better understanding about how our CQ looks like. So I'm reaching the last part of my presentation here. And if I would have to summarize which are the key takeaways when it comes to creating an environment that our teams can shine and what's required for the nurturing, I think that it's really important to be aware about the cultural differences, and this will give us a huge competitive advantage because we will be able to apply different situational leadership styles. And it's important that we trust our teams and that we do this in a very inclusive way. So the Management 3.0 framework and all the techniques that we have there, the delegation poker and the others that we can find there, they are super useful, and the teams really level up when we start using the framework. And my last point is to really think and reflect on what we can do to set boundaries around the team, and then keeping them accountable in those boundaries, but helping them to remove obstacles so they can focus on the job, which is what they can do. So it's all around the idea that we put our focus on supporting them, and we do this by managing the system, not the people. So that's pretty much it from my opinion. And yeah, many different techniques that I have tried during my career. But those three takeaways, I would say that I will encourage everyone to give them a try and see what happens, because they work.
Sounds like it's so fascinating. I was like taking tons of notes while you were talking, but you were on such a roll, I didn't want to interrupt. You also have a master's degree in human resources, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that's such a fascinating background for somebody who is then a software engineer.
Yeah, because I realized that managing people actually is trickier than machines. And yeah, this emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence, and dealing with people, it's very important. So that's why I develop an interest in the intersection between the technology, the tools, and the human beings.
Yeah.
That's what I like of our industry.
And it shows. So where can people find you if they have more questions or want to consider continue the conversation, and maybe they want to implement some of your strategies?
LinkedIn, it's a good place. I post content every week, and I like engaging with the community and sharing some news or some info that I consider that it might add value to the localization industry, or also my blog, localization.com. I'm there every week thinking about what I can share. So dropping a message there or LinkedIn, it will be the best way to contact me.
Sure. Okay. Let me quickly introduce our company, and then we'll flip to that last slide. So inWhatLanguage is pushing the boundaries of our industry by helping clients go to market smarter without sacrificing quality by infusing our services and technology platform Unify. And not only that, but I'm inspired that our growth as a company in part is fueled by our passion to break down language barriers and make a positive difference in communities both globally and locally by giving away 1% of revenue since inception. You can actually find me at Taos. You can go to the last slide. And you can find me at Taos coming up Salt Lake City, where I will be on the demo stage. Will you be at any conferences coming up, Miguel?
I will be in Portugal in a couple of weeks, in 3 weeks, in Localization World. It's happening in June in Estoril, close to Lisbon. So I will be there speaking about innovation in the localization industry, and I will be part of a panel around the topic of do we innovate in the localization industry. So I will be there.
Okay, great. So I'm glad we included your email here because that's also the name of your blog, so they can go find you. And we will post this video on LinkedIn. So hopefully that will bring awareness to the topic, and also maybe some people will reach out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, any closing thoughts or comments?
I think that I would encourage everyone to trust more their teams, and it's scary at the beginning, moving from the driving seat to the passenger one, and it will be tricky at the beginning when you are starting to implement some of these empowerment techniques. But the reality is that it's worth it, and we will find new ways to support the team, and we will be more effective leading the team from strategic point of view rather than daily operations. So I would encourage everyone to read and reflect on the Management 3.0 and to reflect on the differences between leading and managing, because it's a good place to be.
Excellent summary. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a good rest of your week.
Thank you for having me, and looking forward to seeing you in real life, maybe one of these days.
Yeah. All right. Take care. Thanks.